So I'm Dave Sheppard. This is Jim Pearson. I'll give a little bit on my background in a minute. I'm going to let Jim introduce himself, and then we'll get into some Q&A. We'll have some questions for you, maybe even, and feel free to have your questions ready for us. As you can see, it's the end of the day. We want to make this informal. We want to have a good conversation with you. Jim, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay, thank you, Dave. And Joe, thank you for having me here. I appreciate it very much. My name is Jim Pearson. I'm a field vice president for national accounts with McKesson. I'm based in the Southeast, and many of you are probably familiar with McKesson. But we are a Fortune 15 company. We've got about $174 billion in revenue, so we're quite a large corporation. A couple fun facts to give you about McKesson. We were started in 1833, selling pharmaceuticals in New York via horse and buggy, and we're the oldest company on the New York Stock Exchange. A lot of people don't know that. And we distribute approximately just under 40% of all the prescriptions in the United States, okay? I'm with the Med-Surg Group, and we are a $6 billion entity under McKesson. We distribute medical surgical products to the alternate site markets, primarily home care, long-term care, and primary care, the physician office business. And I have been in the home care business for about 30 years on the provider side with a medical device company and then in distribution. So that's a little bit about me and McKesson.
And to give you some perspective on my background, I have been in medical devices for over 30 years, as I mentioned a minute ago. And I travel a fair amount. I've worked with a lot of big companies. I've been with Sierra Bard and Cooper and Ciba, Tyco, which became Covidien for many years. And then now I'm working on my own as a consultant for a company called Ontogenesis that I started. And that's, if you look up Ontogenesis, it's about helping things form and come to maturity. And so that's what I'm doing today. And what I'm still doing is traveling the world to meet great people, helping them get to market. So to give you some more perspective on what it takes to do my job, I'd like everybody in the room who has been outside of their home country at least once in the last 5 years to stand up. If you've traveled anywhere outside of if you're from the US, if you traveled outside the US in the last 5 years, stand up. If you're from outside the US, go ahead and stand up if you traveled once somewhere because you're here, okay? If you've traveled to more than 5 countries in the last 5 years, stay standing. Pretty impressive group already.
Wow.
If you've traveled to more than 10 countries in the last 5 years, stay standing. 15? Ken, you're a warrior. 20? 20? All right. And just so you know, the reason this question came up for me, I was just doing my latest Chinese visa for a meeting that I have next month. And they asked you that question, how many countries have you been to? And I added it up on my passport, and the ones I could find and count, it was 25 countries. So just to give you an idea, that's just the last 5 years. So that's kind of what you do, and it's part of what you have to do to be successful in global distribution, because you can read a lot of papers, but to be effective, you actually have to be out in the market to help make things happen. And so I think I'll kick things off a little bit in terms of the discussion to tell you when you're in global distribution, and Jim's going to talk a little bit more about the U.S. as we get going, but I'm going to focus more on international. You have to do some of the same things internationally that you do in the U.S. And so preparation, when you're in sales, I think Mike Sperduti talks about it, preparation is important, and negotiation skills are important. So one of my first trips over to, actually it was my first trip to Shanghai about 15 years ago. And I'd been to China before. I'd been down to Hong Kong and to Shenzhen. I've been very, very busy. I was a global, running a business group globally for Tyco at the time. And so I jumped on an airplane, and I got on the plane, heading towards Shanghai. First time going there. And I'm on the plane, and I'm realizing, oh crap, I was so worried about all the meetings I had when I was going to be there that I didn't even think about how I was even going to get to my hotel when I landed in Shanghai, and I'd never been to Shanghai before. And so I decided, well, I'll get there and I'll figure it out. I'll get a taxi, whatever. So I took the flight. As you know, people that have traveled to Asia, or if you've traveled to Asia, the US, it's a long flight. So by the time you get there, your cognitive skills are not as strong as they probably should be. So I'm going to give you an excuse right up front. So I got my bag, I walked out to the lobby, and I'm starting to head to the official taxi stands. And of course, you know, at every major airport around the world, you get those unofficial guys, you know, taxi, right? And so, against my better instinct, I went ahead and said, well, how much? Okay, well, that was my second mistake, right? So my first mistake was talking to him. The second mistake was, how much? Like I knew what the heck I was talking about, right? Because I had not prepared. I didn't know if we were going 10 kilometers or going 100 kilometers, right? And so anyway, so we started negotiation, and he says 500 RMB. You know, and so I'm like, well, that's not too bad, but I guess it must be a little ways. And so I asked him how far, and I think it was like a half hour to 45 minutes going from Pudong to downtown. And so I figured, okay, I've been to China before, so I can negotiate. I'll just negotiate this through, right? So I just go, okay, 250. Just being a standard American, I just cut it in half, right? So I'm thinking I'm being a good negotiator. So we end up settling like 375, right? So I'm thinking, okay, I probably got taken a little bit, but I'm going and I'm tired. And I just want to get there. So he grabs my back. He walks across to where the official taxis are, and we keep walking. And now I'm going, okay, I really should grab my bag and just run back over here, but I'm tired, I'm kind of into it. So we walk into the parking lot. We go back down 3 levels, over a couple of places, and we get to this old like 10-year-old clunker, or 15-year-old clunker, and I get in, I'm going, okay, I need to know this guy's name in case something happens, which is another mistake, because how do I know? The fact that I know his name at this point doesn't matter, because I'm not going to be able to tell anybody, right? So anyway, now I'm kind of a little bit more awake. We take the drive to Shanghai. It takes a little while to get there, but we're getting closer. I'm feeling a little bit better, right? And so we get to the hotel, and then he gets out and he says, well, it's 500. I said, no, we had negotiated 375. And I'm realizing at this point I'm already a little bit screwed, because in my pocket I only had 100 denomination RMB, so I figured I'm gonna have to give him 400 anyway. So we settle on the 400, and I'm a little aggravated, not so much at him, but mostly at myself for what I just did. And then I walk in the hotel lobby to check in, and I realize in the taxi, which was an unofficial taxi, I had left my black leather jacket while I was being so aggravated at myself in this negotiation. That black leather jacket was worth more than the whole trip. And then to add insult to injury, when I returned to the airport later that week on an official taxi, the actual cost was like 125 or 150 RMB. It was about a third of the cost. Right? So this is a lesson about, number one, Dave Sheppard's not perfect, and number two, preparation, negotiation pays off in about anything that you do. So with that, I'll kick off the engagement and discussion on global distribution. Does anybody, before we get into too deep, does anybody have any pressing questions that they would like to ask? I can start with some questions that I get all the time. One of the questions that I get all the time is, should I go with a big guy like McKesson, or should I go with somebody smaller? I think Matt was talking about these 1099 reps or independent reps. So that can be an interesting question. Do you want Jim to give some thought on that?
Sure. I mean, you know, just to give you an idea of how our business works, we sell medical devices, we sell supplies, we sell solutions to our customers. And again, we're selling in the home care market and the physician market, primary care and long-term care, all right? So we're looking for innovative products and services to sell to our customers. We have about 1,200 vendors that we purchase from, and we have about 150,000 products in our portfolio, okay? So one of the things that we would be looking for would be, what makes your product unique? You know, what's your value proposition that makes your product different than the other 150,000 that we already have in our portfolio, okay? But if it is a unique product, again, it's something that we want to bring to our customers. So whether it be wound care, incontinence, respiratory, you know, some of the other major categories, enteral nutrition, that we have, we would be interested in talking to you. And the way that that's done is basically that the vendor would contact our office in Richmond, Virginia. They would ask for category management, and the category manager who is over your category of products would talk to you about what kind of fit they see for your product in our market. We have a link that vendors go to that can have them fill out documents and everything. And it's not, I'm going to say it's not necessarily an easy process, okay? There are some hurdles along the way that I will tell you to do business with McKesson. One is that we require, from a device standpoint or a product standpoint, we require a minimum of $5 million in product liability insurance. And I know I've had small vendors that have come to me and said, how do I get to McKesson? How can you distribute my product? And for some people that kind of scares them away, okay? But we have a distribution agreement, and we work with our vendors to work under that agreement with regards to terms and payments and channel distribution fees, which we do, and that sort of thing, as most big distributors do. But that's really how you would go about getting access to having your product with McKesson. Does that answer your question?
I think that's a good start. One of the
we have a question. If you we have two questions, but Mike's first. Hold on.
Okay.
So Jim, the process to contact you to get the product is a phone call to the buyer.
That's amazing.
Right
You
buyer?
should ask that, Mark. I'm like, that's amazing.
I just heard
that.
that.
That really is the best way. The best way is to do it as a phone call.
Okay.
And be prepared with your sales pitch, right?
Yeah, and just out of curiosity, is there any rule of thumb for how many times that you're approached to how many products you actually accept?
I don't know that information.
Okay, cool.
over here.
Chris, hold on.
So that answers the question of how you get it in the McKesson bag. It doesn't answer the question, how does it get sold?
Great question.
Great question.
So with 150,000 products, I only want you selling my product.
Okay, that is a great question, okay? And let me tell you the answer to that, and a lot of people think, okay, we've got 375 salespeople in extended care. We have probably, which is long-term care and home care. We probably have 1,500 in primary care, okay, in the physician office market. But we are not a contract sales company, okay? We are a distribution company. So what we sell to our customers is our distribution services, okay? We work with our vendors who have sales reps, okay? Whether they be inside reps or outside reps or whatever. And you know, our reps are out there working in conjunction with them, but I don't want you to think that McKesson is a contract sales company, okay? Because we're not. I mean, we are not a contract selling company. And if you come to us thinking that, you know, all these 375 reps, you get your product in the catalog, are going to all of a sudden the next day go out and start pitching your product, they're not, okay? Because, you know, you haven't trained them, they don't know your product, you know, all that sort of thing. But that's where you would work with our category management team to develop promotions, develop how do I train your reps, how do I get exposure to the market, and they're the ones that really act as as your consultants to how to work best with McKesson.
And that's one of the questions that I get. It's a great question. Chris Buckley, by the way, somebody told me I should meet you. So, you know, Joe, your thing's about networking, so I just met somebody I needed to meet. But one of the questions I get is, gee, I was able to get to a McKesson or Owens & Minor or somebody, I think you bought them. But
no,
anyway,
we sold our acute care business to them, so we're not in the acute care business
anymore. So I get to the big one, I got my thing, I got a line card, and I thought I was done. And what happened? And nothing is moving.
Right.
Do you get that a fair amount from people that got on?
Yeah, because people think that if they get their product in the catalog, you know, it's just like the stuff's going to fly off the shelf. Well, it isn't. I mean, we carry it in our line. You will get some activity, I would imagine, okay? But it does require an effort on the vendor's part to work with our sales managers, our sales team, the category management, marketing, you know, to get their product exposure.
Now, some of the big distribution companies have their own private label branded products. Does McKesson have that as well?
We do have our private label brand. We don't manufacture anything. We manufacture that, through various manufacturers, domestic and overseas. But we are a company that we don't necessarily push our private brand. We carry a lot of national brands. They're very important to us. We offer the customer the choice of our private brand, but we don't go to a lot of effort to steer people to that brand. We want them to use us as a distributor, okay? Whatever they want to buy, that's fine with us.
And the private label, then, for no better term, would be like a generic. It might be a little less expensive to the customer.
Our private brand products we call value products. They are very high quality. McKesson doesn't put their name on anything unless it is high quality. They're typically things like gloves, gauze, bandages, tape, that sort of thing. But we do have a pretty broad line. We've got about 4,000 products in our private brand, including incontinence and a lot of categories like that.
Which leads me to another question that I get. I'll get to you in just 1 second, Mike. Well, a question that I get a lot, is it worthwhile to let somebody else, to give up my brand for a private label? When you're a small company and you don't really have a brand name, it may be worth considering if it's a common supply. Now, if it's something that's a specialized product that you want to develop a brand for, you may not want to do that, right?
Well, that's a great point. I mean, and we do a lot of working with manufacturers for people that want to private brand for us, that they want to private label something, under our name, and we do a lot of business in that area, and they don't really care if it's a McKesson name or their own brand name. And an example of that, there's several examples of that, but our incontinence line is made by a lot of the same national brands. Attends, for example, makes some of our incontinence items. Our private brand diabetic meters are made by a company called HDI. They private brand all types of diabetic meters for Walgreens, CVS, Target, Walmart, all the big retailers.
Great. Mike?
So Jim, I'm wondering, is there a minimum volume that I need to have established that I think I'm going to sell through McKesson? Do you have a threshold of a minimum sales volume for me to get started with you?
That's a great question. We don't really have a minimum sales volume, but we do have a kind of a guaranteed sales clause in our agreements that if we are going to purchase product from you and we're going to put it in our warehouses, if it doesn't sell in a certain amount of time, we're going to send it back.
Mark,
so we have a return policy. And just so you know, one of the reasons, like in the Med-Surg group, one of the reasons why people use us, we're a very highly technical company, technology-oriented company. In home care, 97 to 98% of our transactions come in electronically, either EDI, XML, some other format like that. And the other reason people use us is that we have a very vast distribution network, okay? So we have 22 distribution centers in 20 cities. We get next day ground service to 95% of the population. 95%, okay? So we're doing distribution for people like Walgreens on their website, Walmart, Walmart.com, a company called Allegro Medical that does a lot of website type business. And some of those companies are very interesting. They're a very small business, they have a very small office, and they have customer service and billing and that sort of thing. But yet we distribute for them nationwide, next day ground to 95% of the population. So it's an amazing network that we have to distribute product.
Mark has a question.
Hi. If I build a product for you, private label with the McKesson name, but I build it for you, do you have, because of FDA regs, do you have to put my name in, built for us by so-and-so? Do you have to label somehow that you're not the
no, I don't believe so. We in our labeling, we use our brand, like our brand name, or we'll have names that we generate for, like incontinence is Stay Dry, for example. Sure. And there are products that say manufactured for McKesson, okay? But I'm not really that familiar with that level of detail on the private brand.
Does anyone here know that? Because if I did the FDA and I have all that certification and stuff.
Like a 510K and that
Yeah,
sort
like
of thing?
that, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I know a group on LinkedIn where you can ask that question and probably get it answered.
Yeah, I mean, I know that we carry products that we don't have the 510K. I'm kind of thinking through some products that we have where the manufacturer has gone and they've gotten the 510K and the FDA approval and all that sort of thing, and then we distribute it for them. Yeah.
Craig has a question.
Jim, you seem to be the guy with the target right now. So if I looked at your website, I would see not only MedSurg, which is your division, but I see Z Medical, I see More Medical.
Yep.
Help me understand the different missions between and focus points between those various distribution channels. And if I'm thinking about working with McKesson, how would I know where to go?
That's a great question.
Thank you.
We are a large, complex organization. I will just tell you that. McKesson is broken into basically two business units. We have the distribution services, which is all the pharma business, and then MedSurg. Under MedSurg is Z Medical, which is our occupational health first aid company, and then More Medical, which is another specialty distribution company and alternate site that services schools, podiatrists, all those types of markets, all inside selling, by the way, Mike, just so you know. You haven't worked with them, but they're all inside sales. So anyway, and so our category management team could help direct you as to where the best fit for your product would be. But yeah, like Z Medical, they do a lot of things with devices and supplies and all that sort of thing. And then again, More Medical is the alternate site with in the specialty markets. But a lot of our products that we carry across multiple platforms. Okay, so a company might come in with a product, whether it be a supply or a device or whatever, and we may sell it in multiple markets.
I have a question from Matt.
G'day.
Today.
I'd move the target over to Dave. Just with regard to the process of getting in the door, how does it differ with your company compared to McKesson?
Well, just slightly different. But as far as from here to the Australia down under, right? So in my particular case, I am actually a very loose network of people like myself that have been in industry for 20, 30 years, have done this before with the big companies, don't like all the processes in the big companies, and we help small and emerging companies figure out how to get into the right targets. And that's why I asked earlier some of the questions about, do you go for a small company or a big company? One of the clients that I've been working with recently over in Europe thought they were really excited because they'd identified the biggest dealer in a particular country that they were wanting to work with. And I didn't want to be the naysayer because they were just bringing me a new guy, but I was cautioning them a little bit that may not be the best dealer for them when you're just starting out as a new company. And I kind of let it play out. I gave some advice about who some other targets might make sense because some of the targets were smaller, but they actually happened to be in the sweet spot of the call points that they needed to sell their market. And I think Mike could tell you a lot about that, right? It's about getting to the right people. So I would rather work with somebody who's smaller that's calling on the call point that I need every day than somebody who's bigger and it's going to be on their card and it looks impressive, but a year later I think I'm going to have more done with that person that's calling in the right place. Thanks for the question.
I'm interested to hear Linda's question.
This is directed to Jim. Jim, with 150,000 products in your MedSurg area of McKesson, what does a sales call look like? Really, I'm just curious, how do you conduct business? I mean, how do the salespeople conduct business on a day-to-day basis? What does it look like? I mean, because, you had mentioned that you don't necessarily promote any of those products, but perhaps, let's say a company like our, the product that I represent or whatnot, maybe we'd want to do some work with with a category manager and maybe do some kind of a promotion, a special promotion. So I'm just kind of curious, as on a day-to-day basis, how do the McKesson MedSurg reps make sales calls? What do they kind of look like?
Okay, that's a great question.
And may I add, just to add on to her question, I'm wondering how much of your business is continuous fulfillment? Just in time, you have an idea of when they go through disposables, for example, versus order taking versus proactive selling.
Okay, so our business is, first of all, definitely an annuity business. I mean, we're selling the supplies that people need every day, right? We have patients at home. Let's talk home care, okay? We have patients at home that are on enteral nutrition. If they don't get that food, they starve, right? So we ship enteral nutrition every day, okay? We ship incontinent products. We ship ostomy products, okay? So our business is definitely that annuity business, okay? To answer your question about what does a sales call look like, I can talk about that from a home care standpoint in particular. Usually what our reps are doing are they're working with their customers to try and solve their problems, okay, bring them solutions, all right, and we want to be their primary vendor, right? I mean, we're the pipeline, okay, is what we are, and we want to fill that pipeline as best as we can. So we want to get their enteral nutrition business, their incontinence business, and so on. And so that's really what we're working on. We're working on a lot of that. Now we do introduce new products to them, and we do have promotions, for example, where, again, our category management team works with certain vendors, and they'll have promotions on XYZ products, okay? And that typically involves us developing literature, developing a promotion, usually a spiff. We found that money works with reps. What a surprise. Anyway, so we develop a spiff for them, a lot of times funded by the vendor, okay? And we go out and we sell the product, and that's what we do.
And what, excuse me, to follow up on that, what I recommend to manufacturers, and whether you're going to work with a big company like McKesson or a small dealer that's 2 or 3 guys or gals, is you still need to have somebody in place in business development to manage that dealer. So if you're working with McKesson and he gets his category manager involved, don't just assume it's going to happen. You need to be there or hire somebody to manage them, put together those programs in place to be able to monitor them, measure them. You want to have metrics in place just like it was your own sales team, and you want to measure what's taking place. You need to have a scorecard that you actually work with them to make sure that you're seeing the results that you need to have happen for your business.
If I'm
please. Oh, I'm sorry. Just to answer your previous question, Joe. Our salespeople on the home care side, for example, long-term care, they're not order takers. They're not there to take an order, okay? The customer is ordering themselves. They order with our web portal, Supply Manager. We connect to them electronically so they can enter an order in their system, and then they don't have to go to another system to re-enter the order. They enter it in their system. We go in and grab it. We send it to the distribution center that's closest to the patient zip code. We pick, pack, and ship it, and we invoice them. It's all seamless, okay? I call it medical supplies on autopilot because they don't have to do anything, right? Now on the primary care side, the physician office side, it's very, very different than that. Those people are order takers, and they go into the physician office and they physically take inventory, write the order, okay, using a tablet. It's very different that way, but that's kind of the model there, is that the physician business, their expectation is that whoever handles their business is going to physically manage the inventory and take their orders.
Thank you. So with our relationship on the advisory board, this is no secret to you, I'm sharing with the audience, I send you a ton of leads because a lot of people say, I need help with distribution. Not so much any specifics, but in general, when you get these, and the questions range from, hi, I don't know what I am talking about, to, I've already done my homework quite extensively, can this guy help me? Where does your process, if you could, as an independent, how do you begin to put people into buckets and pair them with the right solution? Can you take us through that process a little?
Thank you, Joe. As Joe mentioned, I'll get a variety of manufacturers that are coming to me, and some may be vendors, could be from the US, could be from any other part of the world, where they've done something where they've copied it, another product, and it's a Me Too product. For those type of products, I really recommend that they would look at a McKesson or an Owens & Minor or some of the other big ones, Cardinal, and just do a private label program with them. Because if you're just looking to get out there, get a big sales force selling for you and have them get some incentive in doing it. Then where I really liked to work is with the emerging technology company, where you have something that's a little bit innovative. It can be incremental or it can be really disruptive. And the earlier in the process that we have a chance to get together, the more we have a chance to really have an impact. For example, one company that I started working with 2 years ago, their technology was awesome, but going back to what somebody said earlier, we don't want to have technology just to sell technology. We actually want to meet unmet clinical needs. So we actually did a market assessment, and we changed our business plan just a little bit, and it just changed.
Who is we in that case? Who is we did a market assessment?
So I did the market assessment working with the management of the company.
Okay.
So what I'll do is if I get engaged, I will do that, or I will do that with some of my colleagues that I have globally. I have a loose association of people like myself that I know in Singapore and Japan, over in Europe, and we'll try to understand where's the best place to take this. First of all, vertically, because the vertical markets, you need to understand them in terms of, do you want to go into the hospital, do you want to go outside the hospital? And then also geographically, because there's been some good discussion with regulatory, where do you want to start? Do you want to start in the EU? Do you want to start in the US? That's a great debate. There's a lot of things that you really have to be thinking about early on. And then I think we're going to have a great session tomorrow morning on reimbursement. That's another thing that you have to think about early is, am I going to get reimbursed for this particular product in Germany when I get there? The good news is I found out Germany has a special program that I didn't know about 2 years ago for people that have innovative products that you can actually get add-on reimbursement. But those are the kind of things you have to think about 2 years in advance, because when you launch your product, now you're going to have to wait 2 years to actually get some of these things approved.
My friend John has a question.
Hey, Dave, how many years in the business do you have?
Myself?
Yeah.
I started in 1981 with Cooper Vision.
30 years.
Yeah.
Jim, how many years?
I have, 38 years now. In the healthcare business. About 30 in home care, but about 38 years. I'm older than I look.
Has anybody ever asked either of you where a product was made?
Pardon me?
Has anybody ever asked where a product was made? Where a product was manufactured?
They have. Yes, they have. I'm not going to say it's a big concern on our customers' part.
Yeah, I'm still here.
But
anybody ever asked Dave where a product was made?
Yeah, some people, John, some people care, some people don't care, but I definitely do get the question.
Because politicians really demonize companies that move offshore to manufacture. They sure care, don't they?
More rhetorical than anything.
Especially in certain years, in certain cycles.
So I'll ask a question that we touched on. Has anyone ever asked you about how earth-friendly a product was?
How earth-friendly? Yes, that's a major issue in the EU. I'm kind of embarrassed to say that as an American. I don't get that question asked quite as much in the U.S. But in the EU, it's definitely an emerging question, probably an emerging question from 5 or 6 years ago, and they're continuing to look on how do we make products more earth-friendly. So it's something of consideration. That's a great question, Joe.
That's encouraging.
We do get that question also, and I'm laughing because I distribute, I have a customer that sells a lot of diabetic strips, diabetic business. They're a competitive bid winner under diabetic, and they use us as their distributor. And every once in a while, we get the warehouse that packs this little 1-inch by 3-inch box of strips in a 12 by 12, 14 by 14 box, And it's a mistake. They're not supposed to do that. Somebody picked the wrong box. They're selling, or they're picking 30,000 lines of product a day. In our DCs, 20,000 lines. These things happen once in a while, right? So anyway, but we'll get a call from the patient saying, do you know what you're doing? Look at the environmental waste. They won't call us, they'll call our customer, okay? But yes, so to answer the question, people are concerned about that.
Here's another question from Linda.
I just really more or less had a comment because it was interesting that you had I don't know your name, but John, you had asked that question because I just had an interaction with someone last week with regard to the VA and VA business, and my understanding, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe that the VA will do any direct contacts or contracts with a company that manufactures outside of the USA. And somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's true.
Anyone in the room know?
That sometimes...
Karen knows? Hold on. Hold on. Hold on.
They won't if there's an alternative they can buy that is manufactured in the U.S., but there's some products for which there's not that choice.
And sometimes you'll get some governmental things that are influenced that way because of what things that John talked about. So I know we're getting short on time. I do want to just pass out a couple of different pieces of information. We've had a lot of people from regulatory speak the last 2 days, and Joe was so great about having a cross-functional group here. One thing I want to mention to people as far as some of the traps that the manufacturers get into is sometimes when they're going to go international, they're so hungry to find somebody, they'll do a deal with a dealer over in a different country, and they'll let that dealer take control of the product registration in that country. And I'm just here to tell you that I've seen over and over again, that's a huge mistake. Find somebody on Joe's group that does regulatory, and if they don't do it that country, have them refer you to somebody that does, and have them help you with that in-country registration, because you will, if you go the other way, it's a mistake that you will regret later on. Especially if you're looking for an exit, because sometimes the big companies don't want to buy your company if in Japan they can't even get control of the product registration because some dealer has it tied up for 20 years.
Angela has a question.
Thanks. This question is for Dave. So I'm pretty clear now on what a large distribution company does. 95% of the population in the next day, 20 warehouses, lots of distribution centers. I'm taking it as a small distributor. You don't do that? And then if not, what's your value proposition? Like, what are you bringing to the vendor?
Joe tried to help me, and I haven't clarified very well what I actually do. What I actually do is I'm not a distributor. I'm a strategist. I help companies go to market. And so what I do is I help them define, do you need a big guy or do you need a small dealer? And I will help them find the dealers. We'll help them define the market, because before you find the dealer, you got to know what market you want to be in, so which channel you need to be in. Once you get to that channel, do you want to be with the big guy? Do you want to be with the little guy? What countries do you want to be in? So that's what I do.
I guess my question still stands. Like, what do the small guys do then compared to a big guy? Like, what can a small distributor give me that a big distributor can't?
Well, and that's really where it gets situational, depending upon the product that you have. So, like, given the example that I used a little bit earlier, the situation with this one client, the big company had a big line card, similar, not as big as a McKesson, but it was for their country. It's a very big line card. It looks very impressive to be on it. However, they had a category manager, just like Jim was talking about. So we're meeting with this big guy with the big title of general manager for that category. And then I go to interview him, and I find out that he doesn't have any salespeople dedicated to the actual channel that we want to sell our product in. So then I go to find a small dealer that actually is selling product in that particular channel. They only have 3 reps, where this other company has 100 reps in the same market, but those 3 reps are calling every single day into the care area of the hospital that we need to sell our product into. So that's the difference of what a small company could do for you. If you find the right one that's in the right niche that you need to be in.
It's more targeted.
Right. Focus. When you're launching a product, I think people that have had a chance to do that before, the focus is so critical. So I'm really big on focus.
It's interesting. When Jim mentions, our team calls and blah, 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 nobody blinks. But when Mike says, I make calls, it's all like, oh, telemarketing, that's a bad thing. But it's the basis, the basis of your business, it's the backbone of your business, calling and web. Yes?
Right, yeah. We're a selling company.
Yeah.
We're a selling company, not necessarily selling individual products, but we're a selling company. We go out and sell our service, and we grow our business. That's what we do. The other thing I want to just say, just to add on to what Dave said for a minute here, to me, And again, you know, I've been in the healthcare business for a long time. I've been with companies that have been successful, and I've been with companies that have failed, quite frankly. But what he said to me, your marketing strategy and your plan is so important, okay? And what is your go-to-market strategy? Who's my customer, right? How am I going to reach them, okay? What's my value proposition? And to me, that is so critical. And distribution is certainly a part of that. It can be a part of it, but so can GPOs, so can outside salespeople, so can inside salespeople, you know, all those sorts of things. So I would encourage you to really spend time thinking that through and planning that. And I guess the other thing that I will say is one of my favorite sayings in business is marketing 101, okay? You ask the customer what they want and you give it to them. It's marketing 101. You go out and ask them what they want and you give it to them. Companies that do that are very successful, okay? But there's a lot of companies that don't know how to do that, quite frankly. And yet it is, in my opinion, it's pretty simple.
Dave, some closing comments?
Yeah, so I think we'll start to wrap it up because I think Jim and I are now on the way between your next drink and dinner and some great conversations. So I will make one last comment and then we'll wrap up. Two of my clients in the last 2 years have been very highly enticed about going to China by somebody who represented to them that they could get there and they would have multi-million-dollar orders. I want to tell you, I've done a lot of business in China, and I love China. And people are rushing to it, big and small. Medtronic is there, small guys are there. So I'm not saying stay away from China. All I'm saying is do your homework, do your diligence, because in both those situations, I advise the companies that they probably were not going to see the order that they thought they were going to get. But a lot of Chinese companies are also looking for IP. And so by just asking you and giving you the enticement of, you know, $1 million orders, they get you to show you their business plan, all kinds of things. So you just got to be careful. And that doesn't just happen in China, it happens all over the world, but this is two examples that I've experienced directly just in the last 2 years. So do your homework anywhere in the world that you would go to. With that, I want to thank Jim for coming up and joining me this year. It's been an excellent panelist, and thank you for your time. We'll be around for drinks and dinner later on.
Great, thank you.
Thank you both.